We on? We are. Okay, tonight, singing us out as we say goodnight at the end of the show, we have McCOOEY singing No One Cares. So stay tuned for that one. Thank you, Chloe.
No worries.
Chloe is our resident classics expert. So whenever we have a letter about the classics on the show, we refer to Chloe. How often does that happen?
Not yet.
Letters tonight are these. She said not yet. Could you hear that? Yeah. Most politicians are like the rest of us. Unexceptional. It's a letter about trickle-up economics, whatever that is. Second letter tonight. Where the hell does this Andy Lee get off criticising television legend Bert Newton? Yeah, the man, he didn't say anything wrong at the Logies. And last letter tonight. The Australian medical standards were the envy of the world 30 years ago. Now you have to wait 2 years for knee replacement surgery. What's going on there? Panellists will be in tonight, all females, all delicious, all beautiful. Are we allowed to say delicious anymore? No. Who got into trouble for that? Macron. When we come back, Sweet and Sour starts now.
Got a problem, big or small, would a miracle be nice? Our motley crew is back, churning out advice. You might even laugh a bit in the following half hour. Park your backside on the couch, cause baby it's time for Sweet and Sour. Right here on Sweet and Sour.
Pour some sugar on there, baby.
It's time for Sweet and Sour.
How's about some chili?
It's time for Sweet and Sour.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sweet and Sour. Gary Mitchell with you for the next fun-filled, discussion-filled, maybe poignant discussions, we'll see, here on Sweet and Sour. First up tonight, let's meet our panellists. Hello, Amber, first timer.
That's right. First time on the show.
Look at your hair, and you're telling me you've been like that for 7 years.
That's right. Yep, that's correct. 7
Wow,
years.
you stand out in the crowd, don't you?
It's hard to lose me, that's for sure.
Except on St. Paddy's Day.
Yes, and then I have to hide myself. Because I really don't want the affections of drunk people.
Good to have you here. Now, your background, you're a psychologist.
No, I'm a scientist. I'm a biochemist.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, it's your brother who's the psychologist.
It's my brother and my sister who are the psychologists.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. Professional lineup tonight, and sitting right next to her. Hello, Louanne.
Hi.
Professional?
Sounds like.
You're not allowed to. I'm singing your praises.
Okay.
You're not allowed to giggle. A giggle? What are you professional in?
Relationships.
Very
So,
well qualified to be here then.
Absolutely.
How long have you been focusing on relationships?
I've started when I was 9, so around about 25 years now. And
Wow. Good for you. Well, I hope your experience is of value tonight when you're dealing with the letters. Well, it always is. That's why we have you back.
Thank you.
And the people who write emails love you, so that's why you're here. Hello, Tam.
Hello.
They loved you too when you were on the panel last time as well.
Oh, I love being here.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
And what have you been doing in the last few months?
I've been doing Tanya's textbook.
Okay, tell us about Tanya's textbook. We spoke about it last time.
Yes, Tanya's textbook is a lifestyle blog and it's a happiness blog. So it's really about conscious living, living with presence, the new consciousness, getting ready for the change in the consciousness that will happen.
When will it happen?
I think it will happen soon.
Soon. Does Stacey think it'll happen? Changes afoot. Hello, Stacey.
Hello, Gary.
What about changes in the real estate market? Is that happening soon?
I think it will.
Well, I read
think
about
we're going
it
to
the
see the
other day.
market go up very shortly. That is my prediction.
In Perth, because it's going down in the east.
Yeah, well, they've had their turn, so we're going to have our turn shortly, I believe.
Well, that's traditionally what happens. I hope it does. Goodness me. They're spruiking it up anyway.
Yeah, I think it's going to go up.
I hope so. Here we
wait.
go. Letter one, ladies. All ready? Buckle in. Here we go. Dear Sweet and Sour, most politicians are like the rest of us, unexceptional. It's pretty disappointing. It takes a pretty exceptional character to challenge convention and have, as they say, the courage of their convictions and lead. So I'm writing to you with two thoughts. The first is to ask if you think there's anyone in the political arena capable of initiating and making positive change. And secondly, to directly challenge this now politically conventional notion of trickle-down economics, which is utter rubbish. It just gives more money to the rich and it never trickles down. What happened to trickle-up economics? Remember when we all received $900 from the government and it saved Australia's bacon? It saw us well through the GFC. At the same time in the USA, they gave all the banks almost $700 billion, and it just saved the bank's owners. It never trickled anywhere. Now our government wants to follow brainlessly the US and reward its corporate mates with corporate tax cuts. More trickle-down bulldust. Where are the political leaders who can crush this Ian of South Yarra in Victoria? Stace, what's going on there?
Well, I never received $900.
Why didn't you?
I don't know, I never received $900, but I'd like my $900, so that'd be great.
You
I can
might
give you
have
my
been
bank
entitled
account
to it then.
details.
When was that? How long ago was that? That was 2008, wasn't it?
I don't know.
2008.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ian seems to have a lot of spare time to writing letters. So I think if you don't agree
You don't have an answer for him, do you?
I
That's
do have
why
an
you're
answer for
abusing
him. Ian, if you don't agree with what is being done, why don't you not tell us and go and do something about it?
But he has, he's written to us.
Yeah, but I know he's telling us. What are we going to
He's
do about
probably
it?
telling everybody.
But why doesn't Ian go and do something constructive and find a solution
is
to the problem?
constructive.
Why doesn't he go to work and button up about this and go and find a solution to this huge problem rather than being a little, a little keyboard warrior?
Well,
That's
you
my
don't-
answer to you, Ian.
Well, you don't know that he's not. Tam, come on.
Ian, I agree with you, unlike Stacey, and I think a lot of Australians would
Stacey
agree
didn't
with
like
you. But here's the thing, I think the world does run on greed and it runs on ego. And I think it's the awakening of the human consciousness that will change everything and its expression on the planet. It's unfortunate that over time these people have exploited our systems and people have suffered as a result. But a wise man did say once that it is the meek that will inherit the earth. And I think it's the egoless, it's the humble man that will eventually inherit the earth. So on an outward level, I think that you don't see change because it's the trickle up, as you mentioned. You don't see it happening, but you'll see it when it actually arrives.
Well, if the meek inherit the earth, I'm going to get all of Australia. It's terrific.
We're going to have a lot of land.
I'll make my flag now. Okay, Louanne.
Okay, well, I'm not going to talk politics, okay, because I don't know anything about politics. I didn't get $900 either.
So two of you didn't get $900?
No, I didn't get $900.
2008.
But governments have an onus of responsibility to try to keep the money in our economy. So when the government gave $900, it was as an incentive to increase consumer confidence, to get them to spend money, to put it back into the economy.
And they did.
And they did. And that spiked the economy, and that was the purpose of doing that.
So it trickled up.
And it doesn't
solidified
matter.
everything.
Exactly. So every single government has a responsibility to keep the economy going. As far as giving tax breaks to Australian companies, to the industry, we live in this beautiful country of a fair go. And anyone that's got major businesses and is keeping money in the country needs to actually have the tax incentives to do that.
To keep it here.
To keep the money here. And, everybody gains under those circumstances. You've got employment, you've got money back into the country instead of it leaving the country. So I say give the tax breaks to the,
I think that's the one valid point. Now that the US have created their tax breaks over there, companies leave and go to where they can make more money.
Yeah.
And it's a very clever political setup that will then try and counter that by creating the incentives to keep it here.
Exactly, but those big companies, they pay so much money in tax.
Well,
what
they
we
don't.
don't understand. Well,
They don't. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, they get a lot of, tax incentives, but they're still, supporting a lot of our.
They employ a lot of people.
Yeah.
They don't pay a lot in tax. They employ a lot of people. That's the big key for us, I think. Amber.
Well, I think that realistically what you have to think about is that we do get the leaders which we elect, and so we need to make sure that when you're talking to people that you give them the information that you truly believe in about this issue with trickle-down economics not working out. And I do agree with you. If you look at the literature that Thomas Piketty put out a good few years ago now, that really isn't working, doesn't work well for the average person.
We've done trickle-down economics on this show before. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. So the thing is that, you know, when you speak to people, you have to make sure that you empower them to have that faith to say, look, I'm going to think for myself, and that I'm really going to be a compassionate person and elect leaders that are compassionate and really work towards making a better country. And if that's what you believe in terms of having leaders who are going to abolish this kind of cuts for people who are at the very top of that corporate ladder, then that's really going to have to come from the people power. And if you look at someone like Bernie Sanders in the US, I mean, that did kind of happen over there, that a lot of people did agree with him.
Wasn't overly successful. We're now
Well,
settled with Trump.
he almost got there. He almost got there. So maybe, you know, we just need to really kind of have that faith to talk about electing leadership in the country which is really compassionate and really fair for everyone, which is going to be hard because unfortunately a lot of Australians don't like to think it, but we're actually very well off that we might have to take a cut ourselves in order to help out the people who are really at the bottom.
Well, I think there's a lot of wisdom in our ladies tonight, because I'm with Amber, I'm with Stacey as well. You only get the government that represents you anyway. It's just representative of you. So Ian, get off your bum and go into Parliament. Or go and knock on the doors of your politicians. When we come back, we're going to be talking about how appropriate Bert Newton's comments were at the Logies. Don't go away.
It's time for Sweet and Sour. Right here on Sweet and Sour.
Really? Pet rats we're talking about here at Sweet and Sour?
Beautiful.
If you'd like to send us a letter, send it to the address that's appearing on your screen. Which address is that? Any one of those 6. Or is it 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 social media contact points. It'll land here. There's no excuse. We've made it very easy for you. There you go, 5 of them. And for everyone that we do discuss when it lands here, we're going to send you to the movies, courtesy of Natalie Cameron and NRC Communications. And the movie we're sending you to is... What's that, Amber?
I think that's Mission Impossible.
It is. It's the new Mission Impossible. It's called Fallout. Haven't heard anything about it yet, but I love the Mission Impossible franchise. Amber's never seen a single one.
Not one.
Not one?
Not
Who else has?
one.
Have you all seen?
seen one.
You've not seen one either.
Maybe we
Wow.
should be going to the movies.
Yeah,
Wow.
maybe we should.
These ladies are more spiritual. They don't like Tom Cruise's explosive movies. Here we go. Hi, Sweet and Sour. This one's called More Mentoring. Where the hell does this Andy Lee get off criticising television legend Bert Newton for his comical comments at the Logies? Andy is obviously a very poor judge of society's standards and very easily persuaded by the superficial gossip mongers of his equally superficial and lacking in understanding, generation. I don't think he actually comprehends the significance of the Me Too movement with which he purported to be relating his comments. He's also a very poor comedian, unlike his very witty and talented partner Hamish Blake. I love Bert and always have done. He's never sought to offer anything other than inoffensive good humour and pure entertainment, and I doubt this fool Andy Lee will ever come close to the genius that is Bert. How did the panellists view Bert's comments, and why do young bucks try to gain mileage by trying to denigrate the icons of their industry? Candice of Brompton in South Australia has written to us. Tanya, you're first up.
Well, I agree that with you that Bert Newton made those comments in all innocence, and I think he's also stated that they were in innocence. And I think what he did, he honed in on some media attention and exposures, and he related it to his past, and he sort of, as a comedian, tried to make it funny. But even though he didn't mean to offend anyone, I think what it does, it triggers a lot of pain and a lot of anger for people that have been abused and for people who have been, you know, in same-sex relationships. And I think what that shows us too, a bigger issue where we really haven't paid enough attention to how much suffering these offences actually cause. So it's not something that you can make light of, and it's not that it was ever accepted and therefore he can joke because it was in his time. And it really was a joke though, that's the thing. But I think the bigger issue is the pain. Even though we have exposure of this at the moment, I don't think we've ever done enough for the victims of sexual abuse or even the pain and suffering suffered by those in same-sex relationships. So I think that's the bigger issue. I do agree with you, Candice. I do think that they were made in innocence.
I agree. I don't know. Well, you know, we can take offence to everything, and I know there are social issues that we have to focus on, but there are forums and fora. And Bert didn't seek to hurt anybody, and he really didn't hurt anybody. You know, his comments weren't inclusive of anybody else. There's people sitting at home feeling offended, I understand that, and for which he apologised, okay, doesn't get it. But there's got to be a test, because we could be offended at everything. Everything that ever happens, we could take offence. And if we're going to campaign on the basis of our own, what would you say, you know, the offence that we take for no reason at all, I don't know. I don't know where that bar ends. 2 tests for me. Do you mean to hurt someone? And number 2, did you hurt someone? I don't think he did. By all means, other people took offence.
But I think he did hurt people. Because I think if you've been a victim of sexual abuse, that's very
But he didn't do that.
No, he didn't. It was a joke, but
He
it
didn't
triggers
do that.
people. It triggers
But you
emotions.
can't, through life, there's a million things that will trigger people.
But it's a
He
heavy-
didn't mean to cause offence,
Yeah,
and
but-
his intention wasn't. I understand you have to be mindful of it, and you do. But you can cause offence
He didn't
without
try
knowing,
to, yeah.
no matter where you go and what you say. But you have to apply tests, otherwise you can't say anything to anybody. And if you don't pass the 2 tests, you know, if you hurt somebody and you mean to hurt somebody, I get it. But where does
Maybe it
that
was
end?
poor taste then. It was joking in
I
poor
don't even
taste.
think it was poor taste. It was, you know, certainly I understand the implications of it. And times have moved on. And there are people out there who did hurt. But I heard at things that people throw around, and I know they don't mean to cause offence. We can, indignation was the word I was looking for. You know, we can have as much indignation as we want, and we can crusade on it. But if the person's intention was not that, it's a different story. Very different to the gorilla comment from Adam Goods, where the girl meant to cause offence. She didn't know she was causing offence, but she meant to cause offence. And so many others. You know, the Me Too movement, where these people were literally hurt and they had to do things. I've got to go. Sorry, Stacey, come on.
Thank you, Gary. Look, I believe that Bert Newton did not mean any offence. He's an 80-year-old man who was trying to be funny. It was just a comment that he didn't intend to hurt. He didn't make intentionally to hurt anyone, and it was sort of someone of his era might say that, and he was joking around. It wasn't something that was intended to offend or hurt anyone, and as Gary said, people can take offence at anything. Basically, someone could say something to you, and one person could take offence at it. The other wouldn't even notice that it was something that could be, offending someone else.
Amber, quick
you
one.
have to
I'm
be-
sorry, I've taken all the time on this. Sorry.
I think that where I stand on this, if you look at Andy's comments, they really didn't have a go at Bert as a person or a performer. They just took his words. And we all say things that we look back and we think, gee, I shouldn't have said that. And I think it's really good to try and take that on board in a really balanced way. And I think Bert should listen to what Andy said and reconsider. It's not about judging him. It's about judging the comments and taking that on board. And I think we could all learn from this situation, take things on board.
Lou?
Caring, careful and careless, okay? And this is how we have every sort of relationship. Australian humour is made on taking the mickey out of other people, and that's what our humour is, putting people down. Was it a careless comment? Yeah, it was a careless comment. He had no filter.
He
But
had no
that's
filter.
he had no filter. But
Don't know
that's
whether
the
it was
humour.
careless though. He
was clueless.
Sounds contrived.
It was, it was clueless or whatever, because that's how that era of humour actually is. And you put it in content and context, and the crowd laughed. What he was there to do is make
the crowd were a little bit.
Yeah, well,
some laughed, some you could hear the
oh my
oohs and
gosh.
ahs.
Yeah, but still, he didn't do it on purpose. It was, in my opinion, a little bit uncool.
You know what? As we transition to a new understanding, you're going to get people like Bert crash into those situations. And it will transition, it will change. But you have to be accepting that people don't mean to cause offence.
It's Australian humour too.
Oh, I think it's universal,
I think that we could do better in terms of our humour to be kind.
Yeah. Yeah.
We asked you
Don't have to
people
be
at
so
home,
sarcastic.
were Bert Newton's Logie comments out of place and offensive? Here's what you said. 31% of you people at home said yes, 69% said nope, didn't take offence. When we come back, we're talking about, medical standards in Australia. Where have they gone? We're going to find out with the panel when we come back, sweet and sour. Indignation, I couldn't find them.
If you're lost in your life, write to us. We'll tell you where to go.
It's time for sweet and sour. Right here on
Okay. Welcome back to Sweet and Sour. Here we go, straight into it. Hello, panel. It's not working anymore. No, that's not what it's about. Australian medical standards were the envy of the world 30 years ago. Now to be told that I have to wait between 18 months and 2 years for knee surgery is disgraceful. The medical insurers and the AMA have ruined our Aussie healthcare standards as they have made us travel down the same road as the USA. We're not as bad yet, but how long will it take before we will all be denied medical assistance because we can't afford the medical insurance premiums? On top of the premiums, we have the top up or gap. My 77-year-old mum, who has had top private medical coverage all of her adult life, has had to pay gap costs of over $12,000 for her recent operation and illness. She's a pensioner. She can't afford it. She doesn't have it. I paid happily for my wonderful mum, but I didn't tell her that I had to take out a personal loan from the bank. I read only last week that the single greatest cause of bankruptcy in the USA is medical expenses. Please, 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 how do we put a halt to this crippling of our medical access? Cuba and Greece now have better medical systems than us, no waiting lists and no additional costs for patients, with medical technologies the equal of the best in the Western world despite their economic despair. Here, the bloody profit mongers have got their hands on our health as well. Angelo of Queen's Park has written to us. Amber, first up.
Well, I think that he's spot on in terms of it is an Australian value to be able to go and see a doctor and to be seen in a timely fashion. And really what we need to look at here, I think, is increasing the amount of funding into the hospitals and making sure that that doesn't get travelling into the private sector. I think that's a big contributor to this, and the AMA issued a report in March basically saying something to this effect, that we haven't kept the funding up commensurate with the increase in demand for hospitals. So that's really the solution. Whether or not the governments will do it, that's another question, isn't it?
There you go, Ange. One on your side, you're right. Lou.
Okay. I think that we need to start looking at alternate medicines instead of relying on the hospitals to, because there's so many other treatments that you can receive. Absolutely, and if you balance your emotions, half your physiological problems are going to dissolve. Number one. Number two, the hospitals are bleeding. The health system is bleeding, and the only way that you can get money in, and afford these things is for tax levies, which is our Medicare levy. So we either increase our Medicare levy, raise that, or we pay bigger gaps. Both scenarios kind of suck a little bit, but that is the reality. Someone's got to pay for it. The money doesn't come from anywhere, so from nowhere. So you've got to, increase taxes or pay the gaps. But nobody is refused medical attention in this country. So, looking down on it. They're just stuck on the
end of the queue and told to wait for 2 years.
Absolutely, or look for other alternatives whilst you're doing that,
We asked you people at home to answer this question. Our medical system was once considered the envy of the world, with waiting lists now stretching years. Is it in bad need of review? Here's what you said. 96% said of course. 4% said no. Wonder how privileged those 4% of people are who said no. All right, 10.
Firstly, Angelo, I'd like to comment that it was very kind and considerate of you to pay your mother's gap, particularly since he had to loan the money. And I do agree with you that the health system in Australia has deteriorated over years, and we do have a few problems. Would I say that Greece is better? Not really. According to my Greek correspondent, Yannis number 5, they have problems as well.
Chanel's first cousin.
That's right. And they have access like we do, but they have problems with their supply as well. They have queues at the Children's Hospital, and they have parents taking their own chairs there. So they have problems as well.
It's not medical utopia in
But
Greece.
The profit mongers, he talked about profit mongers, yes, they'll get their hands on anything. So like I said in the first response to, I think it was Ian, that I think the change will happen on the planet with the awakening of the human consciousness and its manifestation on the planet, not so much with a couple of people that we put in particular places.
Last word, Stace.
Well, yes, the health system is not good, but it is what it is, unfortunately, and here we are. So if you don't have your private health insurance, if that's not one of your priorities, and I understand some people can't afford it, if it's not one of your priorities, you're going to have to wait until, you know, for your 4 months or your 18 months or 2 years. But also we have a lot of people clogging up the A&E in the hospitals with things they could go and see the doctor about. Because you go in there and all of a sudden there's someone with a runny
System
nose there
needs review.
instead of going to the local doctor. So
Say good night, Stace.
good night, Stace.
Say good night, Tan.
Good night.
Say good night, Lou.
Good night.
Say good night, Amber.
Good night.
Terrific to have you. Thank all of our beautiful guests tonight. We're going to cross over to the studio where we have our performer Matthew McCOOEY performing No One Cares. Thank you, ladies. Good night, everyone. Take it away, Matthew. Over there, ladies. Oh, that's it.
Where you been? I've been sitting here lonely. It's after 10, and you didn't even call me. Now I'm a wildfire, I got a need desire. I wanna drink until I can't see properly. So where you been? I've been sitting here lonely. And I will take my time. I will risk my pride. 'Cause in the night I run to a place where I can dream of fame and die. I wanna take you there, but no one else really seems to care. And when the night is gone, I'll return to the world that I don't wanna die. I can't get out of here, 'cause no one else really seems to care. And no one seems to care. Cause in the night I run to a place where I can dream of fame and die. I wanna take you there, but no one else really seems to care. And when the night is gone, I'll return to the